Well, we're here today in a rural cemetery out in Connecticut, and we're at the grave of Josiah Witter. Josiah Witter was the son of William Witter, and he lived in the Massachusetts Bay Colony in a time back in the 1600s that it was illegal to practice Baptist principles and to preach Baptist principles. And the three individuals went to his father's house in Lynn, Massachusetts. They were John Clark, Obadiah Holmes, and John Crandall. They all went up into Lynn to preach for him. His father was elderly and couldn't get out anymore, couldn't travel, and so they went up there to have service with him. He was a Baptist by principle, and when they did that, they were arrested by the town magistrates because they got wind of Baptist proceedings going on. They were taken to a congregational church meeting and forced to sit in a service there where their hats were knocked off. They refused to take them off in what they did not consider to be a legitimate church. Ultimately, John Clark and the others began preaching Baptist principles right there in the service, and they were taken away, they were arrested, they were put in prison, and they were fined and threatened with whipping if they refused to pay the fines. The fines for John Crandall and John Clark were paid, and Obadiah Holmes, his fines, they were offered to be paid, but he refused to allow them to be paid because he said that would be an admission of doing something wrong, and he would not admit guilt to standing for the Bible, basically. And so he was taken, whipped by a 3-lashed whip, whipped 30 times within inches of his life, and after they finished whipping him, he said, "You have beaten me as with roses," because he was glad to suffer for the cause of Jesus Christ. It's said that for a few weeks after that, he literally had to sleep on his elbows and knees because he couldn't bear anything touching his back, and so he couldn't lay on his back to sleep. But this is Josiah Witter. He is the son of William Witter. We also believe that he married the daughter of John Crandall, so there's a connection there between those two families as well. At least at some point in his life, he was married to her. He had apparently more than one wife because one had died, and then he remarried later in life, and I believe that Sarah Crandall was actually his second wife. Elizabeth was his first wife, and they had 2 children. But the two families are tied together, and this is just part of our Baptist heritage that we need to remember. So this is Josiah Witter grave, and he's the son of William Witter. They had a church service in his house and were persecuted for believing like we do. Beautiful area here. The graveyard is in a very scenic area. You can see the lake out behind it, and just wonderful green area. New England's a beautiful part of the country.
And just to clarify, this is north of Mystic, be north of where Valentine Whiteman started the First Baptist Church in Connecticut.
Yes, definitely.
And we're not far from Stonington here, and so Groton is just south of here, so this is kind of the area, and you'll know it by the entry gate.
Amen.
Amen.